Most Belgian Malinois owners believe the biggest challenge with the breed is energy. They expect endless exercise, constant training, and a dog that never seems to slow down. But the real challenge appears much earlier and much quieter than people expect. By the time most owners recognize it, the dog has already changed the way it sees them. The Belgian Malinois is not simply reacting to commands or routines. It is constantly evaluating the stability of the person leading it. Every interaction becomes information about whether the environment is predictable or uncertain. Over time, that evaluation quietly shapes how the dog responds to everything around it. At first, the change is almost invisible. The Malinois still obeys commands and follows structure. It still plays, trains, and appears cooperative. But inside the dog's mind, a subtle recalculation has already begun. The breed has been shaped for generations to detect instability faster than humans notice it themselves. This sensitivity makes the Malinois incredibly effective in military and police environments. But in ordinary homes, that same sensitivity can create misunderstandings. The dog notices inconsistencies that owners never realize they are showing. Tone changes, hesitation, unclear boundaries, and emotional shifts all become signals the Malinois records. None of these moments seem important on their own. But together they begin forming a picture inside the dog's mind. The picture is not about obedience but about reliability. The Malinois is not asking whether a person is kind or affectionate. It is asking whether the environment is structurally stable. Stability allows the dog to relax into observation instead of responsibility. Instability forces the dog to prepare for action. This is the moment many owners unknowingly cross an invisible line. The Malinois begins compensating for uncertainty it believes exists in the environment. Instead of simply observing, the dog starts preparing to intervene. The shift is subtle but extremely important. From the outside, the dog still looks controlled and obedient. But internally, the Malinois is carrying more responsibility than it should. It begins watching more closely, reacting faster, and trusting its own evaluation more than before. This change is rarely dramatic at first. Many owners only recognize the shift months later when behavior becomes harder to predict. The dog appears more intense in situations that once felt normal. It responds faster to movement, unfamiliar people, or sudden environmental changes. The owner assumes the dog has become more reactive. In reality, the Malinois simply adapted to what it believed the environment required. When the dog senses structural weakness, instinct fills the gap. That instinct was originally designed to protect livestock, property, and human partners. In modern homes, however, the signals can become confusing. What the owner experiences as sudden behavior is actually the final step of a long psychological process. The Malinois has been evaluating the environment for weeks or months. Every small signal contributed to the conclusion forming in the dog's mind. By the time the shift becomes visible, the decision is already complete. The Belgian Malinois processes leadership differently than many companion breeds. It does not simply respond to commands and rewards. Instead, it studies patterns of behavior that reveal how stable the environment truly is. The dog is constantly comparing what people say with what they actually do. When those signals match, the Malinois settles into a calm observational role. It no longer feels pressure to manage the environment itself. The dog becomes focused, controlled, and remarkably cooperative. Stability removes the need for constant evaluation. But when those signals conflict, the dog begins searching for clarity on its own. Commands feel less certain because they do not align with the surrounding behavior. The Malinois starts reading movement, tone, and emotional energy instead. Over time, those signals become more important than verbal direction. This process happens quietly and gradually. There is rarely a single moment when everything changes. Instead, the dog accumulates evidence through hundreds of small interactions. Each one adds weight to the internal conclusion forming in its mind. Eventually, the Malinois reaches a threshold where its own evaluation feels more reliable than the signals coming from its handler. This is the moment most owners never realize has happened. The dog is still obedient on the surface. But the internal hierarchy has shifted slightly. Once that shift occurs, hesitation begins disappearing from the dog's responses. The Malinois starts acting faster because it trusts its own interpretation of situations. The dog is not trying to take control. It simply believes action may be necessary sooner than before. What makes the Belgian Malinois unique is how quietly this entire transformation unfolds. Unlike many breeds, the Malinois rarely announces its internal tension through barking or obvious agitation. The dog simply becomes more attentive. Observation deepens while outward behavior remains calm. Experienced handlers recognize this increase in attention immediately. The dog watches entrances more carefully. Movement across the environment receives sharper focus. The Malinois begins positioning itself where it can observe more information. To an untrained observer, these changes may even appear positive. The dog seems alert, engaged, and focused. Owners often interpret this behavior as enthusiasm or intelligence. In reality, it can sometimes signal the beginning of compensation. The Malinois is preparing for the possibility that it may need to act independently. It is not seeking control for its own sake. It simply believes the environment may require a faster response than it previously expected. That belief changes how the dog processes every situation. Once the Malinois reaches this state, reactions can appear sudden to people around it. The dog moves decisively when something crosses its internal threshold. Observers assume the response happened instantly. But the decision was forming long before anyone noticed. One reason this process surprises so many people is because the Malinois remains outwardly cooperative during most of it. The dog continues following commands and participating in routines. Training sessions still appear successful. The relationship seems stable on the surface. But the Malinois is evaluating far more than obedience exercises. It is studying how humans move through everyday situations. Small moments of uncertainty become data points in the dog's mental map. Over time, those data points begin forming a pattern. Breed was developed for environments where hesitation could cost lives. Shepherds and handlers needed dogs capable of recognizing instability before danger became obvious. That instinct still exists in modern Malinois today. The dog is constantly preparing for responsibility if necessary. This preparation is not aggression. It is commitment to the role the Malinois believes it must fill. If the dog senses that someone else is managing the environment effectively, it relaxes into observation. If it senses uncertainty, preparation begins quietly. Most owners never notice when that preparation starts. The remarkable thing about the Belgian Malinois is that none of this behavior comes from rebellion or dominance. The dog is not trying to challenge people around it. It is responding to what it believes the environment requires. Instinct fills the space where clarity disappears. When leadership and structure remain consistent, the Malinois rarely needs to carry that responsibility itself. Observation remains the dog's natural state. Calm evaluation replaces constant preparation. The relationship between dog and handler becomes remarkably stable. But when signals become inconsistent, the Malinois adapts in ways that can surprise even experienced owners. The dog begins trusting its own judgment more than before. By the time the shift becomes visible, the internal conclusion is already formed. And that is why many Belgian Malinois owners do not realize what has happened until much later.